Hello, everyone. This is office hours for May 16th. We don't have anything in the agenda, so let's stay in awkward silence for a minute or two to see if anyone has anything to add. So, yeah.
Well, since I'm here, you've got an MR open about reference architecture or cell sizing. Do you want to ask me anything about that?
No. I think it's clear unless you have different opinions on that MR. And I guess the MR you're talking about is the cell sizing to start with 25K for the first cell with customer data, right? That's the one you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that like for me it's pretty clear. Like my only concern is the downtime that we need to take if we want to scale it up to 50K. Because when dedicated team looked at upgrading from a 25K reference architecture to a 50K reference architecture, it requires downtime because we need to resize GitLab, resize the database, and so on and so forth, right? In AWS, they saw like a 20 to 40-minute downtime. In GCP, it hasn't been tested yet, so it's an unknown number. When I looked at clouds, when I looked at Cloud SQL, it does say a few minutes of downtime. We can't like easily rotate to read replicas and then do a failover, as far as I know, but that might be an option. But I think we'll cross that road when we reach it, and this will be only for internal customers, meaning we'll only self-inflict the pain to ourselves in the beginning, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, GitLab obviously depends on what's achieved as Raft, and we're letting the Gaily team cook, as they say, as the kids say, and hopefully they will produce something amazing that allows for a dynamic upscaling. But at the moment, no, it can't be done, which is unfortunate. And yes, Cloud SQL, as you say, yeah, I know RDS is okay at it. They try and minimize downtime. But yeah, there will be a period, obviously. You'd think that the cloud providers should have an official defined way of doing an upgrade seamlessly.
Yeah.
You think?
I would have
Unfortunately,
expected it to be the case because like
you'd hope so.
resizing seems a common thing, but
Yeah, it's yeah. You're right in saying that. You know, I suspect Cloud SQL probably does go down if you try and upgrade it for at least a bit, and then you could try to do the failover piece. But both of them are pretty weird with replicas. They have all these weird restrictions that you never expect until you see it. So hopefully you figure something out. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the time where we have actual external users on it, and I'm confident or at least optimistic that at that point in time we are no longer using Cloud SQL, and then we have zero downtime upgrade and scale up.
yeah, I think there's other ways to achieve it as well. With the org mover, like we essentially can say, hey, let's provision a 50K reference architecture and move the GitLab Inc. organization. But it depends how far we get. Like I think it's like for now we can say, oh, we will have downtime for now, but there are ways we can achieve it without downtime, depending on at which time we want to upgrade the reference architecture.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll take the opportunity, as I always do, to get on my soapbox and say that we do name them in terms of 25K, 50K and stuff because they're public facing, and we need a way to brand them. They need to be consumable from the first off. And obviously, any branding you do will always have pros and cons, and people take away going, "Oh, it's 25K, 50K." There is no in between. There is many in betweens. They're all designed to be scalable. Like the 25K to 50K look exactly identical for a reason. It's literally just a vertical uplift, some extra horizontal on rails, just for balance. And you can, and the same will go for cells. You can increase your also, if Kubernetes makes it even easier for scaling, you can increase your web service, increase your Sidekick, you can do both at the same time. You increase your database, you can increase your GitLab. It really depends on what the metrics are telling you. You let the environment guide
Yeah.
you and what the users
Yeah.
should do. Obviously,
And that's something that I'm not sure if you saw it, but Andrew
I did, yeah.
created a decision around that, like having flexible architectures, like reference architectures that we're talking about, like 25K, 50K. They're just a starting point for us for a cell to be provisioned, like to have an idea of what we're going to provision. But I think at the end, they'll end up having their own scaling up depending on the workload. And we might load balance, like moving works from one cell to another. We might have to scale up Italy because, like, as Grant said, like, yes, we can have 25K users in one cell, but then if there's a mono repo hammering Italy, then we might have to have upscale Italy, for example, specifically, or things like that. So we'll have to use our usual saturation planning for that. And I'll give a link to that part and the blueprint as well, because I think it's useful for people to know.
Indeed. The word flexible is good for conveying this a bit more directly internally, but the reference architectures have always been flexible. Just to make that super clear, it's not like a new thing. It's not like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
we've redesigned everything. They've always been scalable. And the goal has always been the case that, and we can't really talk about it too much because it's really hard to predict where things go, but we always say that every customer environment eventually will be a little bit unique. And we'll have, and they should be, they want to make sure they've got the right performance, but also want to make sure they're saving costs. If they've got a database node that's way too big, scale it down, scale this one up, etc. That's all fine and very much supported. So same we go for cells. Obviously, you've got bigger challenge in that you would have all these different use cases. It's not just one customer; it's many customers. But it should be fascinating to see how that goes.
I have one item since no one has anything else, and this mostly directed to Grant. So in the past, we've talked about having the registry metadata inside of Get, and you told me, hey, just give me the requirements and we'll build it. What specifically requirements are you looking at? Like, are you just saying, like, are you just looking at, hey, we just need one Cloud SQL instance separated from the main application, and that's it? Or are you looking into some more detail, or like what kind of requirements are you looking for?
We're keeping an eye on the various conversations from the registry team and others, and it's kind of been done backwards. Obviously, it's been deployed to .com, and then now people are trying to figure out what's the UX for the self-managed or the normal space, which Cells is obviously a SaaS, but it is also kind of pretty much copying self-managed. So that's where the friction comes in. You're like, how does it work in the normal term? Because .com needs to up in your database, it's fine. But I don't want you to spin up on our database. That's my personal opinion. But I'm waiting for the team to actually have this is it. This is the design. It can absolutely be co-located with main. It doesn't have any major impact on specs. It's not too heavy. It's just it's more just data, etc. And it supports geo, supports replication, blah blah blah, etc. And I think we're there, but it's still there's still a lot of discussion still going on. Decomp just got pushed to 19.0 as a requirement. That's just happened recently. And that's CI, and then there's talk about a secure database being decomped as well, and everything else. And so yeah, the challenge at the moment is then it comes into the brass and tacks of it. It's like does Omnibus create the database and the user and the permissions it needs, or the charts do? To my knowledge, they both don't yet. I think Omnibus has had some progress. I don't think they both do it yet. So then Get will need to do
I
it.
think the charts does it, right? Or am I mistaken?
It might be I haven't checked on that recently, but I can have a look at that. And well, if the charts do it,
both Omnibus and charts should do it now.
okay. So
No,
in
not
that
for the decomp, Tom, for the registry database.
Oh, okay.
so
Then no, then.
in that case, if once these components can actually do it, there's very little to run and get because we're going. My personal opinion with the reference architectures, and I'll be pushing this wherever I get a chance, is that we're not spinning up a separate database for this now because the costs are just unimaginable. And if we keep going down this road, we have a separate database for registry, for CI, for secure, for geo tracking, for prefets currently, and the main 6 databases. I tell customers to set up 6 databases. they'll laugh you at the room. It's not going to work. And it would just be a maintenance headache for you. The costs would be massive. You know, so all these things matter. So really, the thing we'd be looking for is to say, right, put a setting in charts. The charts will go to the main database, create the database, create the user. Can you registries get it configured to use it? Everyone's happy. If that's the case there, you can already do it. You can just put in some custom config and get it. You just literally put in the setting in the chart, and the chart will do what's been told to do. So that's just basically we need to go through all that. It's like, is the charts ready? Great. And then this is for the sales piece. You can add that now, but then we would just need to make sure, is that right? Is this ready for big time? Is this out beta? Is this ready for production for all customers? And that's when we put in the get officially.
Yeah, and do we have some kind of process that, like you said, ready for production for our self-managed? Is there like some kind of process to decide if it's ready for production or not, or is it just purely out of confidence?
It's confidence. There used to be processes back in the day, you know, Lovable, etc. That's kind of taken a little bit steps to the wayside. We've not really had this situation except for Gately Cluster. And that was just one more confidence, but we had to work quite closely with Gately and performance test that to hell back and make sure that, yeah, this looks basically, you know, functional. But obviously, in the end, it didn't have all the features that you wanted it to have. But that was more of a base thing. I would say if the registry database team and product market is GA, I think that's pretty much where conversation just start happening. We'll just then be doing some rubber stamp checks and go, yeah, okay, cool, let's have it. But it's still in beta, and that just gives me pause before switching along for everyone by default, because once it's on, that's it. So
Cool.
that's different for sales. Like I say, sales, you can switch it on earlier. It would be the custom.
As long as it's opt-in and then sales can opt into it, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, how do you do it right now? Because you mentioned like right now it provisions 5 databases. Is it 5 separate databases or is it 5 separate logical databases?
So that's why we've been pushing back gently on decomp, on registry, on secure, because we're not doing that route. My managers would shout me for costs and every reason. And at the moment, Get will set up the main database. CI is on by default in terms of logical connection. I can't remember if the actual separate database is in there, but the logical connection is in there. But that just comes as default in charts and on the bus. Prefect, it will go off and Get will create the database for you. I don't think that was ever added to Omnibus. And it should be, but now
but is it a separate just a logical?
It will set it has the options to do both. If it's been given one database connection or address, it will create prefect on that database. If it's been given a specific address for prefect database, it'll both into it. We did at the time 4 years ago for prefect because it's kind of a new world. It was the first kind of second database. We're kind of all learning. Since then, I've learned a lot. Probably wouldn't have done that again in hindsight, but because it really just has such complications to the code and the logic and everything else, which is why for these smaller databases, at least, definitely want to just be on main. And if someone really needs to separate out, they can. We'll try and make that at least available somehow, but that should be like, I don't know, the situation is like a customer really heavy CI, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
The option's there, but yeah, we just need to know what, if you want to deploy it on main for sales 1.0, we just need to know what settings needed in charts to make that happen, basically.
We'd have to look at the data because like maybe Alex knows on top of his head, but like as far as I know, the registry database is not that much of a heavy user. And like for QA cells, I don't expect the two of them being resource constrained, but I'd have to look at the 3K reference architecture to fully understand how much Cloud SQL power we give it.
The registry database is really neglectable, especially if you're building it for a small subset of customers. But just to get the wording straight, if you are talking about a database, do you mean a database or a database cluster? Because even if you have a separate database, one database cluster or one Cloud SQL instance can hold an arbitrary number of databases. So you can still, you don't have the large overhead of having an additional cluster, but you can still have the separation, and it might be much easier to separate later if you do it that way.
We're talking about one instance, to be clear. That's what I mean by single.
Yeah, so one single deployment of Cloud SQL
Yes.
to
yes.
databases like inside of that single.
And it really has to be, because with Cloud SQL and RDS, there's such extra costs with them both, because they charge you for managing the database and everything else. And then once you spin up your failover replica, and then read replica if you need it for main,
True.
It costs an absolute fortune. Trust me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah, but so that's why we're very keen on, unless it seems like there's absolutely no way it can be on the same instance, which then we'd probably push back saying, well, are you doing the right thing then? Because this is just going to be such an impact for everyone, us, customers, etc.
Understood, but as long as you're using separate databases, it's quite
Yeah.
easy to change that later because you have a different connection string. So
Yes, we'll need to look into a bit more. There obviously is see for gets just better when you think about, right, well, if the customer already has registry and they need to convert over, do we force that, etc. And then we think about migrations as well. I will clarify something I said earlier. Obviously, with external databases, get will be configured to go in and create the database, because I don't think I don't know. Yeah, Charts doesn't create the main database. You have to do that separately on an external database server, I think. I need to go through it again, but yeah. But yeah, if you let us know, Steve, that you want this info 1.0, we can take a look and see what's the minimum.
Yeah, so I think it's in my opinion, it's a hard requirement even for the QA cell, purely because of the garbage collection that we got out of it, and like I don't want us to do a database migration later on, because it's just a waste of time doing a database migration after we deploy it. So I think our goal is Q2. My goal at least is to try and start working on this in June. And the reason for this is currently I'm working on the break loss procedure for GCP for cells, and we need that first thing because like we need to know how to access the VMs and things like that. And then I'll work on this get requirement, the registry on get. So yeah. Does that answer your question, Grant and Camille? Because I know Camille also had the same concerns.
That's just my question. Yeah.
Camille, does it answer your question as well?
Sorry, I'm kind of like, can you say last sentence?
Yeah, so our goal is to have the registry database within cells when we provision the first cell, so in Q2. It's a hard requirement.
It should be a hard requirement.
Okay.
You have one question?
I have a question maybe for Alex, maybe for Grant. I don't know, but I don't know. Do we want to think about when we put what logical database where? Do we want to think about physical replication as well? Because I think this has implications for org mover, depending on what kind of replication they want to use. Yeah, some data is nice to replicate, some data is not nice to replicate. So yeah.
The thing here is if we put multiple databases or logical databases in one instance, we cannot use physical replication to separate them easily. But as far as I'm concerned, for org mover, only logical replication is evaluated currently, right?
Okay.
As far as I understand it, yes, it's only logical replication that we're looking at, simply because we need to filter by a specific sharding key.
And I think like it's also tricky that we don't know whether we can use logical replication on top of current GitLab.com database. There is some a lot of promise that if we upgrade to the PG16, we may be able to, but it's unvalidated assumption.
Yeah, but the good thing, what is validated, is we can enable logical replication during certain time windows, especially like from Friday to Saturday and from Saturday to Sunday night. So for the initial move, or for occasionally moving customers from GitLab.com to the cells, it is possible to do it basically right now with logical replication. We just cannot do it at every point in time. I have not the complete picture, but I guess if we decide when we want to move customers from .com to cells, and we could start doing it at the weekends, even if the new features in PostgreSQL 16 are not working as expected. Because one thing we want to look into is with PG16, we are able to do logical replication not from the primary, but from a standby. And so in theory, it could be possible that we are able to enable logical replication even during peak hours. But we don't have to blindly trust in that, because we have the alternative doing it on the off peak hours.
I'm going to add one caveat to that. It's today. We don't know if we keep status quo that it's going to be true 1 year from now.
Yes, that's correct. But I have two things that make me quite positive. One is that we just tried out larger machines, which with 170 something cores instead of this 96 cores we have right now. And also there are efforts in implying a retention policy to remove a lot of unused data, which might also ease a bit on the pressure. So I don't see data right now why we wouldn't be able to enable logical replication during off-peak hours in 1 year's time. But you are right, we don't know.
Alexander, but like I think like what you are saying, it kind of implies that like in order to have confidence, we have to apply these mitigation techniques. Because today, if we retain what we are doing today, in 1 year from now, it's very unlikely. But with all of this mitigation, it's quite likely then.
Yes, sure. When forecasting for 12 months in the future, it's really, really hard to be certain. I just don't see brick walls we don't have mitigations for right now. But we have to invest time in that. Sure.
And then the other thing I was thinking of is the database load balancer for web and API, which relies on replicas, right? I guess it's fine to just replicate the data, even though we don't need those for the replicas. But I don't know what the data size is for the other non-web databases. Yeah. Have you seen this problem before, Grant or Alex?
Sorry, I was distracted there. Could you just summarize again?
Right. So, like, if we say mix in the prefect database and the Gitly database into the same physical cluster, then if we set up replicas for database load balancing purposes, then we just have to replicate those things as well. Yeah, if that makes sense. But not
It
that
does.
we
Yep.
may even need it for sales because it's smaller. I don't know. Yeah.
Replication is kind of a one. So at the moment, it's kind of an all in or not. So this is where the prefect database, like I said, the regrets we have with prefect a little bit is when it comes to geo. That's when things really get a bit funky, because you can't replicate prefect to the geo instance, because the prefect of these instances is its own person, basically. It has its own records. So in that situation, now you do need to separate prefect into its own database. It's complicated, extra costs. Oh no, it's a disaster. For database load balancing, you will copy across the prefect database. The prefect database is always, to my testing, it's always been pretty slight. It's not actually been that big. It's just basically there's a record for it to keep an eye on where things are. So yes, you would replicate it for database load balancing, but database load balancing wouldn't be in place for prefects. It's only for main. So as far as I know.
And we'll also will not enable prefect ones.
And yes, it's a rhetorical question. It's prefects not on dedicated cells.
Just to be clear, because
Yes.
that's something we disabled on GitLab.com a month ago, just because
It's gone now. Yeah.
it's way too expensive as a system to run and it doesn't scale well either, unfortunately, which is where Git.ly will come in. So I think for Sans, we'll end up having um, two logical databases, which would be the main and CI into one logical database because decomp is not supported, and the registry database in one single Cloud SQL instance. So that will be deploying two databases for
Okay,
GitLab.com
we
subs.
can make that happen. With, we'll probably just do the minimal thing in Get, which is we just need to create that separate database in the same instance user, and configure charts to point at it. And I think charts handles migration, so that'd be a slightly
so charts, the database migrations for registry are handled as Kubernetes jobs.
Okay.
Inside of the Helm chart. So the Helm chart creates a Kubernetes job, runs the migration as part of the deployment stuff.
That's good.
That's it does get it from a UX perspective. It does become a little bit weird because then when the job runs the Helm, there will end up being a diff because you need to delete that job after that. But like that's a UX thing that we can, I think, fix at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So sorry. Yeah. Well, should be doable. For new instances, that's the good thing. You can make it it's a much easier lift for new instances. Because existing instances, oh my goodness, that's why we have to consider all these other things. But we can certainly look at adding minimal support for a new instance. It's quite nice.
Cool. And do you envision your team, or just you working on adding support to this, or would you need help from? Because right now the foundation team is working on provisioning the first cell, right? And like our goal in the foundation team is like we will do the work, anything that unblocks us, unless we're not the experts on it. So we could technically work on it together on Get directly, unless you say, oh, this is a 1 week job kind of thing.
I'll give the general answer, which is completely depends on the situation, who's got capacity, etc. My team is here and ready to go. We've already got the blocks. We already know the design for that because we've done it with Prefect, so just be pretty much copy and paste job of that if you know where you're looking. So happy to have contributions though, always. Obviously, just reach out to us first, make sure the contributions okay. But yeah. What I'll do is I wasn't aware that was going to be a hard requirement for 1.0. I swear I thought we said we were not going to do it for 1.0. Maybe I must have read CID comp or something. So
CID comp is not
maybe
lower in the
all these databases you can't keep up.
But
that's fine. So I'll take that away and I'll get an issue raised. I'm actually going to be on leave in a few weeks, rental leave, so I'll be gone for a little while, but my team will be able to assist. So
I think there's already an issue, so let me try and find it.
There's an issue for the reference architecture, not for adding to Get, which is two very similar things, but a little bit different.
Okay, so this is the epic to provision the first cell, and the issues we have is, let's see, design and recommendation for this one, and then this two basically. So, isn't this the right issue, or do we want a different issue?
So this is for the reference architectures. This is the big fat one, which is it's ready to go. Here's the production. Here's the recommendation we'll give to customers in the reference architectures. So it's got a little bit more extra weight to that one that needs to be done before we can sign off for using the reference architecture. That's what you're doing, though, is something a bit quicker.
Okay, so would you want me to open up an issue somewhere
No,
else?
I'll raise the issue and I'll ping you in it.
Cool.
We're just going to be doing a very much a technical kind of thing here. We're going to technically add the capability for Get to configure this. We're not going to be talking about it much. We're not going to recommend to customers. It's purely only for sales. So it's just it's a small step forward towards it.
Cool. Okay. Purposes. So the reference architecture is the umbrella, but the ones that we need is like under that umbrella, like a small piece of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, well, Get's just the technical implementation piece, and Get will usually follow the reference architecture. So that's why we start these things in the reference architecture. So it's kind of catch 22 in a
Yeah.
week sometimes, because usually we still need to add it to get first to test it out so we can make the recommendation. It's a fun job.
Cool. Okay, so that's good to know because I thought GET and reference architecture are intertwined, but it seems like GET gets the feature first, and then we tested it with GET, and then we added to the reference architecture.
Well, in that sense, they are intertwined. They're very symbiotic. But obviously, we need to actually deploy the thing to actually test it. So obviously, we would use the same tooling that we already have. Doesn't mean
sense.
that we're adding official support in GET. We wouldn't be calling out to customers saying, "Hey, here you go." But then we have to be careful because some customers will find it anyway and switch it on. No.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that we just have to deal with. And then usually the reference architecture is the complete issue, and then GET is just
Cool.
the part of it. So
Cool.
we've
Okay.
not raised an issue yet because we've not had a clear vision of what that looks like yet. But now we've discussed it today, I think I know where we're going to go. So
Okay, that makes sense. This was helpful. Thank you.
no problem at all.
So yeah, I could go on to another subject. No, no, I'm a lot of subjects to talk about. So if anyone else has anything, now's your time. Cool. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Thank you.